Hey guys, so one of the subscribers, one of you guys had asked me a question, had posed a question about his wife's struggle with her faith with respect to uh, there being good people out there, good people of other belief systems and things like this, and that she was having difficulty in rationalizing how God could take these good people and maybe send them to hell because they believe something different. Um, Look, I'm going to just be straightforward with you. This might sting a little bit, but I promise I will be honest. So here's the reality. I had a homeless guy come into church one time, and we were doing security, and just as part of our job, we link up with these people, we have conversations, try and draw out intent. And this particular homeless guy had come in, and we offered him a table to sit down, eat some donuts, go on in, listen to the sermon, things like this. In our conversation over the coming weeks as this guy came in, he said something to me that was pretty profound, and I mentioned it in another video also. He said to me that there's no such thing as good people, there's just nice people. And I thought about that for a minute, and the truth is that is 100% biblical. Um, the problem that or the stumbling block that we have a tendency to run into when we talk about good people from other belief systems and things like that is it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the gospel and of our own depravity. The question is misformed right from the very beginning, because the assumption is that there are good people out there, and the truth is that there's not. If we look at Romans 3:23, he says here, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." All, everyone has sinned. There is no such thing as good people. There are less bad people, but everyone is bad. If we go just a couple of pages to the right to Romans 6:23, it says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life." So we've concluded from Romans 3:23 that we're all sinners. Every single person born is a sinner. And the price for that sin is death. Really doesn't leave a whole lot of room for discussion there. You go back to the Old Testament, the Psalms, and things like that. It talks about that there is none that seek after God, no, not one. Were it not for God's grace in calling you to Him, you wouldn't even have the slightest interest to pursue Him. It started with God's grace, God's call to us, and then our response to Him. The idea that there are good people out there is just simply not a biblical idea. It also comes down to an issue of how do we define good. Because I had a conversation with kind of an atheist, agnostic friend of mine one time, and she had posed the question that, well, I'm a good person. And I'm like, well, good compared to what? Because if we don't have some sort of defined standard that says this is good and this is bad, then good becomes a relative term. Was she a good person as compared to me? Absolutely, yeah. She's a much better person, much nicer person, caring, things like that, compared to me. But in her heart, is there still selfishness, self-ambition, self-glorification, self-righteousness, pride? Are those things still present within her, even in the smallest degree? Yeah, absolutely, because those are things that are inherent inside each one of us. So the idea that there are good people out there is just not a biblical one. I don't know if that kind of helps your situation at all. I'll give you one more example before I kind of cut this off, and that's when the economy collapsed. That's when I found myself basically going off overseas, and I was doing a lot of security work and things like that. On my way back from Afghanistan, I was confronted by a customs agent who was looking at my passport and where I was coming back through, and he was like, welcome back, thank you for your service. And this question really, or this statement really kind of bothered me. I mean, I knew what he meant by it. But I also knew that within my own heart, I didn't go over there to be a patriot. I didn't go over there to, fight evil or anything. I didn't go over there with any kind of selfless intent. I went over there because the economy had collapsed, and this was the only way that I could provide for my family at the time. My intentions, my motivations were at their root level, at their lowest level, their foundational level, they were selfish. And as a result of that, when the guy looked at me and was like, "Thank you for your service," it caused me to kind of look introspectively, and I could have walked on and been like, well, I did walk on, but I mean, I could have gone on and been lifted up with pride, and yeah, that's right, you guys owe me one, and this type of thing. But the reality is, I just kind of nodded and said thanks, and I went on my way. And for the remainder of the flight back to the States, I was sitting there just thinking, or back to my location. I just remember sitting there thinking, that it really wasn't a pure motivation. And this comes to the root issue of what I'm getting at, is that the Bible talks about how our hearts are deceitfully wicked. Our pursuits, our goals, our ambitions, they are at their base level, at their root level, they are selfish. Were it not for God making something alive in our hearts to pursue Him, we wouldn't. So, again, coming back to that first issue, why do these things happen? Why is God going to send good people to hell for not believing the right things? He's not. God is going to give justice to all those, to every single one, regardless of what you believe. But my justice was paid for by Christ. So it's not by works of righteousness that I've done, but by Him. And that is something that's offered to everyone. You can try and work for it on your own, and you'll be a better person than me. But if Christ is the standard for what is defined as good, then there's no one that reaches that standard but Him, which leaves every single person on this planet, regardless of whether or not you're better than me, worse than me, regardless, it leaves every single person on this planet as in that bad category. You might be more bad or less bad than me, but you're still bad. So maybe try talking to her about it from that perspective, and take her through those Romans passages, and see about talking to her there. So you guys, God bless.